Right now, as you're watching this, 150 million Americans are in the path of what could become the most destructive winter storm in over a decade. And here's what terrifies me most. The storm just shifted north. Again. If you live anywhere from Texas to Boston, the next 72 hours will change everything. Power grids are about to fail. Highways will become ice rinks. And by Saturday morning, some of you won't have electricity for a week. Stay with me for the next few minutes because I'm going to show you exactly where this monster is heading, which cities are now in the crosshairs that weren't yesterday, and the one critical mistake that could leave your family in the dark and cold. At the 3-minute 20-second mark, I'll reveal the biggest surprise in this forecast, something that shocked even veteran meteorologists this morning. But first, let me tell you what happened in the last 12 hours that changed everything. The European model just confirmed what we feared. This storm refused to stay in its lane. Yesterday, we were tracking a system 150 miles farther south. That was bad enough. Ice storms in Arkansas. Heavy snow in Oklahoma. Dangerous? Yes. But predictable. Then overnight, everything shifted. The entire system moved north. Not a little wiggle, not a minor adjustment. A massive, unprecedented shift that puts 30 million more people directly in harm's way. Cities that were preparing for rain are now facing catastrophic ice. Towns that expected a few inches of snow might get buried under 18 inches. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. Dallas might get hit harder than we thought. Listen carefully if you're in Dallas-Fort Worth. The models show you're riding the razor's edge between a cold rain and a devastating ice storm. Just 1 degree. That's all it takes. 1 single degree colder than forecast. And your city faces the kind of ice accumulation that snaps power lines like toothpicks. Don't let your guard down. You're still in the crosshairs. By Saturday morning, January 24th at 10 a.m., Southwest Missouri will be buried in heavy snow. The Red River Valley, stretching toward Little Rock, faces dangerous ice accumulation. And Dallas sits on that terrifying line where precipitation type becomes a game of Russian roulette. But wait, because it gets worse. By Sunday morning, January 25th at 4 a.m., this ice storm stretches all the way into Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, and South Carolina. We're talking about a corridor of destruction spanning over 1,000 miles. Heavy snow bands hammer the Ohio River Valley, then surge into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And remember that promise I made? The biggest surprise is coming at minute 3:20. Keep watching. Now here's where this storm does something almost unbelievable. Yesterday, we were forecasting an all-snow event for southeast Kentucky. 2 feet of powder. Winter wonderland stuff. Today, the warm nose of this system has pushed so far north that Kentucky might see rain. Actual liquid rain in January during what should be a historic blizzard. That's not normal. That's not a small model adjustment. That's the atmosphere doing something wild. I've watched winter storms for 20 years, and this kind of dramatic northward shift, this back and forth waffling in the models, it tells me something. This storm has energy. Lots of it. And energy in weather systems means unpredictability. It means danger. Could it shift back south tomorrow? Absolutely. Will it shift back as far as we originally thought? I honestly don't know. But right now, today, this is what we're dealing with. And we have to prepare based on current data, not wishful thinking. For the Interstate 95 corridor between Baltimore and New York City, this means a potentially massive snowstorm. 12 to 18 inches, maybe more. This is the kind of snow that shuts down cities, that collapses roofs, that strands commuters for days. But for Virginia and North Carolina, it means something worse. Heavy ice. Now we've reached that critical moment I promised you. Here's what genuinely terrifies me about this forecast, and why I'm recording 2 videos today instead of my usual one. We are looking at a potentially catastrophic ice storm stretching from North Texas through Arkansas and into Tennessee, then curving over into the Appalachian Mountains through Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. The Weather Prediction Center, these are the most conservative meteorologists in the business, the ones who never exaggerate, the ones who built their careers on being cautious. They are now explicitly warning about ice accumulation exceeding 1 inch in some locations. 1 inch of ice. Let me paint that picture for you. 1 inch of ice on power lines means they snap. 1 inch of ice on trees means branches the size of your car come crashing down. 1 inch of ice on roads means nobody, and I mean nobody, is driving anywhere safely. Emergency vehicles can't respond. Power companies can't repair downed lines. You're on your own. The bullseye for this ice threat includes the Interstate 35 corridor near Dallas-Fort Worth, extending northeast along Interstate 30 and Interstate 40 into Memphis and Nashville. If you live along these routes, you need to understand something right now. Your normal life is about to pause for several days. And here's why this ice situation is so uniquely dangerous. This storm has a specific setup that creates the perfect recipe for disaster. Massive amounts of cold air are flooding out of Canada, pushed by a high-pressure system that's literally dragging Arctic air south like a bulldozer. But here's the catch. This cold air is shallow. It doesn't extend very high into the atmosphere. It's just creeping along the surface, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 feet deep. Above that shallow cold layer sits warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. So picture this. Clouds form in the warm layer. Rain develops. Those raindrops start falling through warm air, staying liquid. Then, in the last few hundred feet before hitting the ground, they plunge into that shallow pocket of air that's 25, 26, 27 degrees, not cold enough to freeze them mid-air, but cold enough that the ground is below freezing, cold enough that every surface, every road, every power line, every tree branch is below 32 degrees. The rain doesn't have time to freeze before impact. It hits as liquid, then instantly freezes on contact. This is called freezing rain, and it's the most destructive form of winter precipitation. Snow? Snow you can plow, you can shovel, you can drive through if you're careful. Sleet? Sleet bounces off. It accumulates, but it doesn't stick to everything. Freezing rain? Freezing rain coats everything in a layer of solid ice that just keeps building and building and building. If you're in Arkansas or Tennessee, do not plan on traveling Friday or Saturday. Roads will be impassable, not difficult, not dangerous. Impassable. You will not get where you're going. You might not make it home. And while we still don't know exactly where the heaviest ice totals will land, I can tell you with confidence that there's a corridor running through this region that's going to be a sweet spot for catastrophic problems. This includes Memphis. This likely includes Jackson, Tennessee. This definitely includes Little Rock and points south. This might extend up to Texarkana. If you're in this zone and you haven't started preparing for multiple days without power, you're behind. You need to start right now. Not tomorrow. Not this evening. Right now. Another critical area. Asheville, North Carolina. The models suggest less freezing rain here compared to Tennessee, but here's the problem. It doesn't take as much ice to cause devastating problems in the mountains. Why? Trees. Lots of trees. Power infrastructure strung through hills and valleys. When you get a ½ inch of ice accumulation in Asheville, even just a ½ inch, vegetation comes crashing down onto power lines. Thousands lose electricity. Roads through the mountains become death traps. Make sure you're prepared. And everywhere in between, while most of Kentucky might not be in the highest threat zone, some spots will still see significant ice accumulation and power outages. If you're highlighted in pink on the ice storm warning maps, any shade of pink at all, you should be taking preparation seriously. Now let's talk snow totals, because this storm is a dual threat beast. The national blend of models shows serious snow accumulation between Oklahoma City and Wichita, Kansas. 8 to 12 inches. That's nearly a foot of heavy, wet snow. Amarillo could see 8 to 10 inches. Wichita Falls. You're probably a bit too far south for the heaviest snow, but 3 to 4 inches is likely. Dallas shows 2 inches in the current forecast. But remember, everyone in this fringe area, this transition zone, you're fair game for that catastrophic ice storm I keep mentioning. Just north of Dallas, in Bentonville, Arkansas, we're looking at 8 inches of snow. That sounds realistic based on current trends. But here's something the models haven't figured out yet. There will be a connecting band of heavy snow linking these areas together. See, we've got this huge blob of over 12 inches of snow in one area, then another bullseye of heavy snow farther east. Common sense and meteorological experience tell me there will be a connection. A narrow band of heavy snow, probably over a foot, will thread through this region. But we don't know exactly where yet. It could include St. Louis. It could include Jonesboro. It could hit anywhere in between. This is the kind of detail that becomes clear 24 to 48 hours before impact. That's why I'm doing 2 updates per day. That's why you need to keep coming back. And this connecting band could absolutely include Bentonville or Springfield, Missouri. 8 inches is possible. Maybe more if you end up in that sweet spot. Nashville. Here's your bad news. Yesterday we were discussing over 12 inches of snow for your city. Today, we're seeing more warm air infiltration, which means ice becomes the bigger problem. Snow is less of a concern now, but we're still 3 to 4 days out. Things could shift back by tomorrow. Right now, anywhere between 5 and 8 inches of snow is possible between Nashville and Clarksville, with ice problems layered on top. That's going to be an absolute mess. Imagine trying to clear 5 inches of snow when it's coated in a ½ inch of ice. Imagine trying to drive in that. Don't. Lexington still looks like around 12 inches. Pikeville, in eastern Kentucky, 8 inches. Cincinnati, 10 inches. Then things get absolutely crazy in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We're talking about a foot of snow or more from Richmond all the way up to Boston, extending back to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh shows 10 inches in current models. Now, I think this might be slightly too large of an area. I definitely believe we'll have a swath of 12 to 18 inches of snow on the East Coast. I'm just not completely sold it will be quite this extensive. Get ready for more than a foot of snow in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. But Williamsport, Harrisburg, areas a bit farther inland, I'm not 100% convinced we'll see these extreme totals that far back from the coast. I could be wrong. Models could be right. But right now, let's not count on this huge area of high snow totals. Shrink it down in your mind a little bit. If this continues to show up in tomorrow's models, I'll certainly let you know. Once again, I'm doing 2 videos per day to keep you updated with the latest information as we move forward. And yes, I know we have thousands of you watching from Asheville, Charlotte, and Raleigh, all the way down into South Carolina. Here's your update. The big snow event for North Carolina is not going to happen. Recent models show ice being a much bigger problem than snow. The farther north you are in North Carolina, the more snow you could potentially see. Raleigh to Greensboro, we're talking about 2 to 4 inches. Just north of Winston-Salem, a couple locations might get 6 inches of snow. But your biggest problem, unfortunately, is going to be ice. Now I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier, because it's absolutely critical you understand this. The engine driving this entire historic event is an absolutely crazy high-pressure system barreling out of Canada. This thing is dropping literally Arctic air, North Pole air, onto the United States. And it's acting like a bulldozer, pushing this dense, heavy, cold air southward over the Gulf of Mexico. And this cold air has staying power. I've mentioned this in my last 2 or 3 videos, but it bears repeating because people don't seem to grasp how serious this is. After this storm passes, it's going to be colder than it has been in over a decade for many locations. We're talking about record or near record cold. And it's not like the next day things warm up. It's not even like 2 or 3 days later you're back to normal. This cold pattern has locked in. It could be several days before many people, even in the South, even in places like Alabama and Georgia, get back above freezing. Several days below freezing. Think about that. Think about what that means for pipes, for homes, for people living on the edge. The cold pattern is locked and loaded, and it's not going anywhere soon. In fact, there's so much cold air in place that there's already another signal for another major snowstorm after this one. We're not going to talk about that yet. We're going to take this one storm at a time. But understand this. We're in a really intense winter pattern right now. This isn't a one-and-done situation. This is a pattern change. This is winter arriving with a vengeance. So let's talk timeline, because timing is everything. This all gets started on Friday. I'll likely be broadcasting live on Friday. We already have an enhanced risk of winter storm impacts from Oklahoma City over to Little Rock on Friday. If you're in that area, you need to be taking precautions now, especially in the highest risk zones. Get supplies today. Get batteries today. Get food and water today. Saturday is the big day. Saturday is when the most people get impacted. If you don't care about weather, if you think this is all hype, if you're planning to ignore this, let me make you a promise. You will care on Saturday. You will. Hold me to that. Saturday will get your attention. The enhanced probability area will likely shift north on the next update, which I'll show you tomorrow morning. And we also have a Day 5 enhanced risk extending over to the East Coast, from Richmond up toward Boston. This is likely going to expand with our next update in the morning as well. Now, I want you to do something for me. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from. Tell me your city and state. This serves two purposes. First, it helps me understand where my audience is concentrated so I can tailor coverage. Second, it creates a community. When the power goes out and comes back on, you can scroll through comments and see how your neighbors fared. You can share information. You can help each other. So right now, pause for 5 seconds and drop your location in the comments. I read every single one. And in tomorrow's videos, I'll try to address specific cities that people are asking about. Because here's the truth that big media won't tell you. Every city has a unique forecast. New York's snow forecast is different from Philadelphia's. Memphis ice concerns are different from Little Rock's. Nashville's situation is different from Knoxville's. When you tell me where you are, I can give you better information. I can focus on your specific threat. I can help you prepare for what's actually coming to your neighborhood, not just the general region. And preparation is everything right now. If you're in an ice storm threat zone, here's what you need. Flashlights, batteries, candles, matches. Non-perishable food that doesn't require cooking. Water, at least 1 gallon per person per day for 5 days. Medications, phone chargers, ideally portable battery packs. Blankets, a way to heat at least one room safely if power goes out. If you have a generator, test it now. Make sure it works. Make sure you have fuel. Make sure you know how to operate it safely. Carbon monoxide poisoning kills people every single winter storm. Don't become a statistic. If you're in a heavy snow zone, different preparations. Snow shovels, ice melt, or salt. Make sure your car has a full tank of gas. Winter emergency kit in your vehicle. Blankets, snacks, water, flashlight, first aid kit. If you get stranded, these items save lives. And here's something nobody thinks about until it's too late. Medications. If you take daily medications, if anyone in your family does, get refills now if you're due soon. Pharmacies might be closed for days. Roads might be impassable. You need a buffer. The worst-case scenario isn't just losing power. It's losing power while someone in your house needs medication you can't get. It's being stuck at home while a family member has a medical emergency and ambulances can't reach you. It's pipes bursting because your heat went out and you weren't prepared. These aren't scare tactics. These are realities that happen every major winter storm. But here's the good news. And this is important. If you prepare now, if you take this seriously, you'll be fine. Uncomfortable maybe. Inconvenient certainly. But safe. That's what matters. I've lived through major winter storms. I've seen communities come together. I've seen neighbors helping neighbors. I've seen people sharing generators, sharing food, checking on elderly folks. Winter storms bring out the best in people when everyone's prepared. But they bring out the worst when people panic because they ignored the warnings. Don't be the person fighting over the last loaf of bread at the grocery store Friday night. Don't be the person trying to find batteries when shelves are empty. Don't be the person realizing Saturday morning that you should have taken this seriously. Be the person who prepared Thursday. Be the person who has extra supplies to share with a neighbor. Be the person who stays calm because you saw this coming and got ready. Now let's talk about what happens after the storm. Because the storm itself is only part of the story. That Arctic high-pressure system I mentioned, it's not just bringing one blast of cold. It's ushering in a sustained cold pattern that could last a week or more. Cities across the South, places that rarely stay below freezing for extended periods, could see temperatures in the teens and 20s for days on end. This creates secondary problems. Burst pipes become epidemic. Homes not built for sustained cold develop issues. Energy grids get strained as everyone cranks up heat. Natural gas demand spikes. Rolling blackouts become possible even in areas that didn't get hit hard by the storm. The recovery period from this storm could take longer than the storm itself. Power companies will be working around the clock, but when you have ice bringing down lines across 6 states simultaneously, restoration takes time. Crews can only work so fast. They have to prioritize. Hospitals, emergency services, critical infrastructure gets restored first. Residential areas come later. If you lose power, you might be without it for 3 days, maybe 5. In some rural areas, maybe a week. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it so you prepare accordingly. And during that recovery period, while crews are working to restore power, temperatures stay brutal. This is what makes this particular pattern so dangerous. Usually, winter storms blow through, and then temperatures moderate. A cold snap, then recovery. Not this time. This time, the cold lingers. We're looking at overnight lows in the single digits across much of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, teens in the Mid-Atlantic, 20s in the Deep South. And these temperatures sustain for days, maybe over a week in some locations. Your pipes need to be protected. Let faucets drip. Open cabinet doors under sinks to let warm air circulate. Know where your main water shutoff is located. If a pipe bursts and you don't know how to shut off water, you'll have a flood before you figure it out. Keep your thermostat consistent. Don't crank it way up during the day and way down at night. Steady temperatures are better for preventing pipe issues, and they're actually more energy efficient. If you have a fireplace, great. Stock up on wood. But never, ever use your fireplace or any open flame device as your primary heat source if you're not set up for it. Carbon monoxide detectors become critical. Every year, people die from CO poisoning during power outages because they use grills, generators, or other devices indoors. Space heaters need to be used carefully. Keep them away from anything flammable. Don't overload circuits. Don't run extension cords under rugs. Basic safety stuff that people forget when they're cold and desperate. Now, I promised you at the beginning that I'd deliver value, that I'd tell you exactly what's coming and how to prepare. I think I've done that. But there's one more critical piece of information I need to share. This storm, as massive as it is, as destructive as it could be, represents a pattern shift. We've been in a relatively mild winter across much of the country. That's over. The pattern has flipped. And when weather patterns flip this dramatically, they tend to persist. What does that mean practically? It means this isn't the last winter storm you'll see this season. It might not even be the biggest. Remember earlier when I mentioned there's already another signal for another major storm system? I wasn't joking. Long-range models show another potential significant winter storm around January 28th to 30th. That's less than a week after this one. Details are fuzzy right now because we're focused on the immediate threat. But the pattern supports it. The cold air mass supports it. The jet stream configuration supports it. This could be a winter that people remember. This could be the winter that defines a generation's memory of snow and cold. Or it could moderate after these two systems. We don't know yet. But the signals are ominous. What I do know is this. The storm arriving Friday through Sunday is real. The threats are real. The ice is real. The snow is real. The cold is real. And if you're in the impact zone, your life is about to get complicated for about a week. But you can handle it. Humans are remarkably adaptable. We've survived worse. We'll survive this. The key is preparation, community, and keeping level heads. So here's what I need you to do after you finish watching this video. First, drop that comment telling me where you're watching from. Second, share this video with friends and family in the impact zones. Information saves lives. Third, make your preparation list and start checking off items today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow the stores get crowded. Tomorrow shelves start emptying. Tomorrow people panic. Be ahead of the curve. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another update. Then tomorrow evening with another update. I'm committed to keeping you informed every step of the way as this storm evolves. The models will update. The forecast will change. I'll be here to explain what it means for you. Friday, I'll likely go live as the storm begins. Saturday, definitely live as the main event unfolds. Sunday, live again for the aftermath and the beginning of that brutal cold pattern. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. This is the most critical weather event of the year so far, and it's just getting started. And remember, weather doesn't care about your plans. Weather doesn't care about your schedule. Weather is the ultimate force of nature that we can predict but can't control. What we can control is our response, our preparation, our willingness to take warnings seriously. Some of you are watching this thinking it won't be that bad. You're thinking the forecasters always hype storms and they never pan out. You're thinking about that time 5 years ago when they predicted a foot of snow and you got 3 inches. I get it. I understand the skepticism. But I'm asking you to put that aside for this one. The pattern is too ominous. The model agreement is too strong. The atmospheric setup is too perfect for disaster. This is the real deal. And here's the final thing I'll leave you with. The thing I want echoing in your mind as you go about your day. Saturday morning, when you wake up and look outside, one of 2 things will happen. Either you'll see the storm in full force and be grateful you prepared, or you'll see the storm in full force and regret that you didn't. Which person do you want to be? The choice is yours. The information is here. The warning has been given. What you do with it determines your experience of the next week. Stay safe. Stay informed. Stay prepared. Drop your location in the comments right now so I can give you more specific information in tomorrow's updates. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll have the latest model runs and potentially some significant changes to the forecast. Until then, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.